All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another live stream. I know it's been a while. It's been like 2 months since I've done one of these. And so if you're wondering why that is, there's two reasons for that. Number one is I've just been extremely busy lately, like insanely busy. So work's been busy, personal life's been busy. Just been a really busy year for me. Especially like I imagine a lot of the folks who work in the AI space can actually probably empathize to an extent. Like the since ChatGPT came out, it's still not even been quite a year. Since then, it has been just an insane year in terms of interest and new technologies coming out and AI really being brought to the forefront of society, it feels like. So it's been really cool, but it's also been very like I don't want to say tiring because it's not tiring implies that it's not fun. It's just I guess it's a well, I don't know any other word than tiring, but it's fun. I mean, it's fun. It's just that it's a lot of work. So that's number one. Reason number one is there's some tired. Number two is I just really, in terms of personal development, my focus in the last couple of months has been on learning just pure math skills. So I've been learning calculus, been learning more advanced statistics kinds of things, and I've been thinking about it a lot. Like I've been thinking about like how can I convert that into something that is like for a live stream, because I mean transparently when I put all these live streams together, these live streams are more so for me than they are for you. I mean, it just it happens to work out that you and I can benefit together, but the reason I am sharing something is it helps to reinforce my knowledge about something that I'm trying to learn. And so that leads into a nice segue to what tonight's this evening's presentation is. Oh, by the way, in case you're curious, why is this on a Tuesday night? So the reason this is on a Tuesday night tonight is because I normally do these Fridays afternoons. So Friday, big day for gaming. Super Mario Wonder and Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5. So that's not going to happen. So there was not going to happen a live stream then. And so I was like, okay, well, let's start backing up. Thursday night. Got a friend coming for dinner Thursday night. All right. Well, how about tomorrow night? Something else is going on tomorrow night. All right. Whoop, I guess we're doing tonight. So that's how we made our way to Tuesday. So this won't be a normal thing, but this is just how it's working out this time. All right. So so what we are going to be talking about tonight is AWS Bedrock. So if you're not familiar with the service, we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of it. We are going to be doing a little bit of a technical demo alongside of it. And then we'll talk about how this necessarily differs from something else like the OpenAI API. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. So the first thing that we're going to do is, in order to get a programmatic thing working, we're going to create a SageMaker notebook. So before anything, before we talk more about Bedrock, let's get this going because this can take 5 to 10 minutes to get going. I am using my own personal AWS account for this. So we'll go down here to notebook instances. You'll notice I have nothing. I'm very diligent about deleting things when I'm done, because AWS will get you otherwise. All right, so we're going to keep things simple. I'm just going to call this Bedrock test. Bedrock test. Let me make this a little bit bigger for y'all. Nothing fancy here. We're going to keep it at T3 medium. We'll keep these all of the default settings. I am going to intentionally screw something up here. You won't see it for now, but for now I'm just going to use this default role here. We're going to keep access to the notebook the root access to the notebook there, blah blah blah. Nothing else really fancy here. Create notebook instance. So the only reason that we're doing this right out is just because we need something to get this going. All right, so let's go back into here. So this is, if you are not familiar, this is the AWS Bedrock, or the AWS console. So by the way, just for a little context, I'm not gonna like. What am I trying to say here? I am not going to focus too terribly much on how to use AWS. There's a little bit of an assumption here that you understand some of the things with AWS. I'll do my best to try to capture like some of the more important points, but I'm not gonna tell you after this that this is the console or something like that. Like I'm gonna infer that you know some basic things about AWS. If you have the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner certification, you'll be good to go here. So no problem. We're not doing anything particularly fancy. All right, so let's go into Amazon Bedrock. So what is Bedrock? So it is a newer service. Now it recently came out of the beta form into what is general availability, known as GA. which means that it's basically good to go for prime time now, if you will. So let's contrast this with the OpenAI API that we've been interacting with over the last several live streams and blogs and whatnot. So the big thing there is when you interact with the OpenAI API, you are interacting with the OpenAI models. You are not interacting with anything else. You're not interacting with Anthropic. You're not interacting with Cohere, any of these places. What Bedrock is choosing to do is it's going about this a little bit differently. Now it's manifesting very similarly in terms of like we're actually just going to call like a Python library. Like basically calling an API just like we do with the OpenAI API, except it is not. So there actually is one large language model that is being managed by AWS, and that is Titan. But what Bedrock really is, it's like a home for like, so I think AWS has referred to as this as like the democracy of AI models. So if you want to come in and select what they're referring to as a foundational model, which is like one of these baseline models, you can. And so I don't know what the process is of saying, okay, let's say I'm Anthropic, for example. Now this is obviously a poor example since they have some sort of special agreement. If I'm Anthropic and I approach AWS, then we are going to come to some sort of agreement to where they host my model, so they host the Anthropic models on the AWS hardware, and then there's like some sort of agreement from there where AWS is kind of doing the server kind of things in the back end kind of and stuff, and then charging customers for that. And I'm going to assume that somebody like Anthropic is getting money for that as well. I don't know how all that breaks down. So, and I'm not sure how, if I wanted to get inside of Bedrock, if I want to add my own brand new model to Bedrock, I don't know what the process is for that. But that's what this service is designed to do. The service is supposed to be a home for models that don't necessarily have I don't want to say don't necessarily have a home because Anthropic has its own API, but it's a place where you can easily integrate with these large language models on AWS specifically. So that is probably the biggest benefit of Bedrock here. So I just want to call that out now because this is super important to keep in mind. Especially, so Bedrock, in my experience so far, has been an interesting service in the sense that the big thing to keep in mind here is that when you get access to Bedrock and you work in Bedrock, that does not necessarily mean, okay, you're clear to use all these models. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So off on the left here, you will see that there's like a left navigation. Let's jump on down to model access. Now, this has already been a little bit messed around by me just because I've already done some things in here. Now, you'll notice there's not that many models in here, but I'm sure that there are more coming. We already know that Meta's Llama 2 is going to be coming inside of here. But by default, there is 0 model access. So that is super important to keep in mind. 0 model access, because I know that perhaps one of the big concerns is, okay, let's say I work for I work for a big company, and like I got all these AWS accounts, and we are very, as a company, we want to make sure that we are being careful with which models we select and which models that we integrate with. By default, you might be concerned that, okay, well, there's all these different AWS accounts. Like, what do we do about Bedrock? Because we don't want people just going in and messing with Bedrock without the appropriate permissions and the appropriate vetting and stuff. So that is the one good thing about Bedrock here. Is even if I have access to Bedrock itself, I can't do anything with Bedrock until I've actually accepted some of the things around these models. And so this is something that you might want to turn off if your company is still kind of vetting this out. But by default, there is 0 access. In fact, whenever I went into here immediately, the chat playground, and we'll cover this more clearly in a little bit, but I actually couldn't do anything in here until I actually got the appropriate access. So what that means here is, so you can see that we've got our models in here. I've already granted access myself to this one. You'll see that I got a couple others that are listed as available. This one's listed as unavailable. Now, there was one button in here that was really interesting. There's several things that are interesting in here. Number one, notice on the right how you have the EULA, the End User License Agreement. So again, this is one of those things where if you work for a larger company and you want to make sure that you are following all the terms and conditions appropriately, you might want to work with your legal team or your risk team to ensure that you are doing that through the links over here. Now the interesting thing was though is I don't think that any of these EULAs necessarily have like you have like a tacit agreement associated to them, except for Anthropic. Now you can't see it here because I've already done this, but whenever I first accessed Bedrock, and you might be able to do this on your own AWS account, and you'll be able to see it. There's like a request button here, and I actually had to fill out an additional form that went to Anthropic, and it wasn't a heavy form. It was just a form saying, okay, here's who I am. Here's my primary intentions of what I want to do with the model. They don't require you to get like trade secret specific or anything like that. And then so in my personal case, I don't know if they actually do reject, if like there's an instant rejection somehow. I was instantly accepted. So that was the one thing to note. And I wouldn't be surprised in the future if we see like Meta's model show up here. So, you know, if you are familiar with like the Meta Llama 2 model, you'll know that it has a special license associated to it. And that may or may not show up here in the same form of this button here. So, but obviously on my interface, you can't see that because I've already done it. But let's say I wanted to go and request one of these other models that where my access is not necessarily granted, but I want to try one out anyway. So I want, I want to keep one of these to where I'm not using it. I'll keep Cohere's where I'm not using it. So the way that we do this here, oops, I should have showed you that before I clicked in here. Sorry about that. Okay, let me refresh that here. You probably did see it, but I just want to be super clear. All right, get away from there. All right, so you can see this table here. Now, if I want to add one of these models here for my usage, what I do here is I go into the edit button, and then I go and click off on like the like this one here. Like this is the one that I want to add. Oh, I wonder if you can turn some of these off. I'm going to try to turn off Claude Instant there and see what happens. Now, by default, remove. Now, by default, I believe that, okay, so here's the interesting thing. Like, I don't understand how the AWS Marketplace necessarily works, but this is all operating through the AWS Marketplace somehow. So if there may be some extra things around there that I'm not thinking about. But that's all I needed to do to access it, and now I'm not getting charged. So that's the one thing to keep in mind, or at least I'm pretty sure I'm not getting charged. I believe this is just giving you the access, and then when you actually call the model, then that's when you actually start to incur some cost based off of your usage. So it's not like, oh yeah, now if I used it last night and then I'm gonna keep incurring a bill if I'm not using it throughout last night. No, that's not the case. So that is how you access the models. Now you'll see here that the one that I just requested, this Jurassic 2 from AI21 Labs, is in progress. In my experience, it was like 5 to 10 minutes, and then it was good to go. And then I revoked my own access to Claude Instant there. So yeah, so I expect to have more models populate in here over time. So okay, so that's that. Now, again, this is just an introduction of Bedrock. So I'm not going to cover things like agents. I'm not going to cover custom models, but just know that there are other things that you can do. You can buy provision throughput if that's something that's really important to your company. If you want to ensure that you have an appropriate uptime, you can buy that provision throughput. I'm just giving an overall introduction. This should be a pretty short stream tonight, to be transparent with you. All right, so let's go ahead and go into like the playground here. So this is their chat playground, and I think it's interesting that all of these AI providers have called these interfaces like this the playground. Like OpenAI's got a playground. Azure OpenAI has its own separate Azure OpenAI playground, and now we have the AWS Bedrock playground. So this is pretty easy and straightforward to get started with. So all we want to do is like I said before I went and selected which model I wanted to use, nothing showed up in this category. And I think there was even a message at the top here that says you can't use this until you, or something along the lines of you can't use this until you select some models in here. All right. By the way, if anybody has any questions, I am monitoring both YouTube and LinkedIn for questions. Feel free to ask them. Just note that I have about a 20-second time delay, so it might, if it doesn't show up instantly, that would be why for me. Okay, so let's go ahead and select Anthropic. Let's select Claude 2. Claude 2 with the amazing up to 100K context window. Still the industry leader in that regard, I think. Okay, So let me move my face out of the way since you can't really see some of that. All right, I'm going to move my face up here. All right, now you can see the run button. So this is actually pretty simple. So let's go ahead and ask, what is there a way I can make this bigger? There you go. How about that? All right. So what is the capital of Illinois? Okay, so if I click run, should do this for me. Yep. Springfield is the capital of Illinois. Okay, so that is the very basic thing. So you can actually have it do it with streaming. You can't see it because my face is in the way again. But up in the top right here, right above this default thing, there's a streaming button. I'll move my face just for a second again. So you can see there's like a streaming thing. So if you wanted to do one token by token, you can stream it out just like ChatGPT does. Now you can update the parameters of the model as well. So like, let's say you want to turn down the temperature or the temperature or whatever. So you can see down here in the playground, it's update inference configurations, and then you can do whatever you want to in here. Okay, so playground is pretty straightforward. Not really much else to share here. So this really is Bedrock. Like, there's not much to Bedrock. It's actually really easy to get up and going with Bedrock. And to be completely transparent, part of the reason I'm doing this today is because I spent 10 minutes, before work today, seeing how much I could get done, and I got basically everything that I wanted to do done in 10 minutes. Now, granted, I'm a little bit I'm familiar with like some of the gotchas and the pitfalls of AWS. Pitfalls is not really a fair word, but some of the gotchas at AWS. And that is the one thing I am going to cover tonight in tonight's live stream. I knew how to resolve it instantly, but you'll see what happens. So, all right, so let's go back into SageMaker. Now, you don't necessarily have to interact with Bedrock through SageMaker. I just find it's probably the easiest way because we're going to spin up a Jupyter notebook here. In fact, we already have. So if you come in here, so yours should be created just like it is mine. Now I'm going to open the Jupyter interface. Now you can do Jupyter Lab, that's fine. I'm just a vanilla Jupyter kind of guy. All right, so let me move my face again. All right, so let's go ahead. The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that Boto 3 is updated. Now, if you don't know what Boto 3 is Amazon's Python library that you use to interact with any AWS service. So if you want to do something with S3, if you want to do something with Redshift, if you want to do something with Athena, Boto 3 in Python is your thing, or your coding library. I don't know what you want to call it. All right, so I want to make sure that this is updated. So you can do this by, I'm going to open up a new terminal really quick. So the way that we did that is, so new up here and then terminal. All right, so I'm going to open up a terminal here. And then, so what I'm going to do is pip install upgrade Boto 3. All right. And by the way, I did not even write code for this stream tonight, and I'll show you why, because it's not really even worth it for me to do. GitHub, AWS Bedrock. So yeah, they AWS created this whole AWS Bedrock workshop in here, and basically all I did was just walk myself through this first notebook here, and I was good to go. And even this is just showing a lot more than you even need. And I'll explain each thing along the way, but I might have to refer back to here and there. All right, so now we've installed Boto 3 and it's updated Boto Core. So let's go ahead and spin up our notebook instance. So the way that we do that is we go to new, and we'll select a Kona Python 3 kernel, and then we're going to import 3 libraries. One of them, I don't know why we have to import. I just noticed that it needed to be imported, or else this code did not function correctly. All right, so let me make this a little bit bigger for y'all again. All right, so the 3 that we're going to import JSON, because I feel like the ones that you always import, OS, JSON, those are the 2 you always import. Now, if you're a data scientist or a machine learning engineer, then you're always importing NumPy and Pandas and scikit-learn and matplotlib and what's the other one? Seaborn, all those. So yeah, there's more, but JSON's one that I'm always importing. And then the other 2 are Boto 3, of course. And then the one that doesn't make sense to me because we don't actually directly use it, but it's still needed, is Boto Core. And transparently, I don't remember what Boto Core is. But all you need to know is in order to get the code working, you need to import that. Otherwise, we're not going to touch this guy at all. Okay, so if you're not familiar, so there's actually two clients for Bedrock within the Boto 3 library. And so one of them is just the standard Bedrock. And so that one's honestly, from my experience, not the one that we want. We're going to use both just because I'll show you why. But the other one that we will actually use is called Bedrock Runtime. So let's go ahead and instantiate these clients. So the way that you do that, I'm going to call this Bedrock client equals Boto3.client. This is how you do any sort of client. So if I was going to do S3 here, I would do S3 here. But I'm just going to do Bedrock. And like I said, there's two different clients here. So Bedrock Runtime client equals Boto3.client Bedrock runtime. I think that's right. Okay, let's see if this runs. All right, that ran correctly. All right, so this one up here is really just more so about getting information about what's inside Bedrock. And then this one down here is actually running the models out of Bedrock. So in fact, I'll show you the documentation I'm looking at right now, just so to keep totally transparent. All right, so this is the precise documentation I'm looking at on my other screen down here. So this is the main client. So you can do things like, hold on, I got a cough. Okay, sorry about that. So this is where you can see things like getting the foundational models, listing the foundation models, listing out things, tagging resources, whatnot. So the only reason I'm kind of importing this one here is I'm just going to list out the foundation models just to show you that how you can do that. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, we're going to use this upper client here. So we're going to do Bedrock client dot, I already forgot what it's called. List foundation model, list foundation models. Okay, that was not supposed to work. So the reason it wasn't supposed to work, I don't know what I did here. Let me check. Okay, so I was intentionally hoping that we would see an error right here. And so the error is, so let me go back and show you. Maybe I accidentally forgot to delete my thing here. So this is the notebook instance type. Basically, what I was trying to simulate here was an IAM error, identity and access management. So if we come down into our IAM when I was doing this earlier today, I tried to get it to work, and then I had this IAM error. Maybe it's just because I forgot to delete it out of yeah, I did. I forgot to. So let me go ahead and do that here real quick. I'm gonna simulate what I was trying to fake out here, and I got really lazy and I just put it right there. So for now, I'm just gonna delete that out there. All right, now let's save. I can't see the save button. Oh wait, where's the save button? Review and save. Oh, next. You can't see it because my face was there. All right, and let's go ahead and save. All right, so I just took out Bedrock from there. All right, so now if I come back to this code that I was trying to intentionally have an error. All right, so now there we go. Okay, so this is the error that I saw earlier today. This is one of those typical AWS gotcha errors. So basically, there isn't actually an error per se. It's just simply that we do not have the permissions, and you can kind of read that to understand. So like you can see that. So this is the AWS ARN Amazon resource name that I am assuming for this notebook, and you can see here that I do not have this list of foundational models from Bedrock identity base policy to be able to do that. So in order to fix that, you just have to go into your IAM role here, and then go to your policy, or you could do it wherever you want, and then you just need to add the appropriate permissions. Now I'm going to do it in the most what's the word? The most non-security friendly way as possible, and that is, so the way that these AWS kind of stuff works in terms of like what you can and can't do is you have you can see it kind of here. You have your actions of what you can and can't do. You can have the actions of what you can do and like what resources you can take against those actions, and then the effect of those. So you can see here in this particular block right here, I am saying any resource on AWS delimited by the star icon here, or the star. I'm not thinking. I can't think of words tonight. Like I don't, like my brain is just not working right now. So anyway, any AWS resource in my account, or using those for what? My apologies, can put CloudWalk metric data, and it is allowed to do that. And then you can see all the different things here. Now, so if I want to get really lazy, and I am going to get really lazy here, and again, you should not do this if you are working for your company. You should find out the least privilege. There we go. Least privilege. That was the phrase I was looking for. All right, you want to follow least privilege best practices. So I'm going to do Bedrock : star. So that's saying, what this is saying is, okay, I got to put the comma after here. I want every resource, or I want anybody that's using this policy here to have access to do whatever the heck they want to do with AWS Bedrock. Yeah. All right. So now I can go back down and next. All right. Now I have not saved this yet, so let's run this one more time just to prove that this is still airing out at the moment. Come on. AWS can be a little bit slow sometimes in the notebooks. All right, let's restart the kernel. Let's see if that does anything. Oops. All right, still getting that error. All right, so now, and that is because I've not technically saved this yet. Now let me go ahead and save the changes. And the cool thing about IAM is it takes pretty much immediately. Maybe I have to restart the kernel again. Nope, there it did. So now we're good to go again. So you can see here, here's all the different models that are offered. Now what I was trying to find earlier is like which ones I have accepted, because I did not see it in this list. But perhaps you can go and find that. Again, the documentation is actually pretty straightforward. So if you just give it a Goog, you just search like AWS Bedrock Boto 3 client, it'll show you this. But again, the one that you're probably more interested in actually is the runtime client. So let's go ahead and jump over to the documentation for the runtime client. All right, so the runtime client, that is this. So this is actually pretty like simple. So this is what we instantiated already, and we want to invoke the model. So here's how we invoke the model. That we take in the string, we take in this body, content type string. And so actually this documentation is not super straightforward. Instead, I would just point you all to this this other thing here, and I'm gonna get probably pretty lazy again here and just do what I did earlier and start copying stuff. All right, but you can see that this notebook here that they provide is very good. Like, it's much better and more detailed than like the actual Boto 3 documentation here, and it actually has code that you can run. My only biff with this notebook here is you can see here that they put bedrock.get bedrock client, and then I was thinking, well, where did this come from? Like, why is Boto 3 not used here directly? And the answer is because they created their own utility to do this, and I think that's a little bit misleading, I guess. Like, if you're not careful, you might not know where this is coming from. So I figured that out pretty quickly, though. That was another little gotcha there. But again, simple resolution. You just instantiate a client just like you do any other AWS client. So Bedrock runtime, and we're good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and run one of these models. So let's do Bedrock. Well, let's come up with a prompt. So prompt is going to be, what is the capital of Illinois? All right, there's my prompt. All right, now I got to remember how to do this here. I haven't reviewed this super closely to see if the what is it, the syntax matches appropriately per all the parameters. I actually don't think it does, which is kind of annoying, honestly. Like, I don't know why they like the Boto 3 just doesn't have all the same thing here. So I'm just going to copy the code down here. So all right, so here's the prompt data. All right, now let's go to Anthropic Claude, except I just removed my Claude instance. So I'm just going to copy and paste this here because I am, again, being super lazy. All right. So, oh wait, they called this prompt data. Whatever. My voice is kind of going too. All right, Bedrock, runtime, client. Client. All right, so this shouldn't work. All right, what? All right, I'm gonna call this prompt. All right, area human must end with invalid prompt. Prompt must start with blank. So what did they start with here? I think Anthropic specifically is kind of like very specific as to what it wants to see. Oh. Okay, I see what they did here. All right, let me refactor this a tiny bit. All right. All right, so human assistant. And I don't know if this is just an Anthropic gotcha or if this is a more so of a what's the Bedrock gotcha. All right, so that actually worked, and I'm not really sure why that worked because I thought I revoked my access to Claude Instant, or maybe I guess it did say that it takes a little bit for the thing to take. All right, let's find the one that I did not intentionally like accept for myself. All right, so let's go back to Bedrock. I know there was one. I think it was Coheres that I purposefully did not touch. All right, so model access. Yeah, Coheres I purposely did not touch. So what are let's find the example for Cohere. Is Cohere in here? Of course it's not. All right, are there any other ones that I did not accept in here? Because it did say that I might have access for still a couple of hours. I wanted to demonstrate. I wanted to see if I can get it to where it wouldn't work. This is one thing I did not test out earlier. I'm going to assume that my assumption is, though, if I try to get like Cohere to work, it's not going to. Or I'm going to get like a similar error to the one that we were seeing before, that I didn't accept something or the like. But I mean, there's nothing particularly fancy here. So let's run through this code just to tell you what it's doing. All right, so what we're doing is, I guess this is the Titan embedding model. Well, I guess I could try this because this wouldn't work. I don't have access to the embedding model, so I'm gonna see if we can get fake out an error here. All right, prompt data. This should not work. I hope it doesn't. How often can you say that, folks? I hope something doesn't work. Bedrock runtime. Okay, well, let's change that to Bedrock runtime client. Yeah, there we go. That's what I wanted to see. Okay, so I am not authorized to do this. So let's see if I can go ahead and get this activated to see if I actually can get this to do what I want here on the fly. Well, I guess that does take a few minutes. But let's try it. Let's see how fast this goes. So this is using the Titan embedding models. So Titan is like Amazon's take on the LLMs. And to be completely transparent, I believe there is a separate service called Titan, and I don't know hardly anything about that one. Or maybe not. Maybe it's only within Bedrock. Okay. Well, I don't know much about Titan. Just being transparent. All right. So this is. Oh, it says it's already access granted. So if I rerun the cell over here, it should work, I guess. So let's go ahead and rerun the cell here. Hey, okay. All right, so dang it, I should have taken a screenshot of what that looked like. I'm irritated with myself now. All right, but this isn't complex code at all. So like, let's come back up here to our Anthropic one. So we're basically just setting the body of whatever we want to dump out here with some parameters. We're setting the model ID. We're setting some basic things that all like APIs and stuff take in. So applications like JSON, this is probably nothing new to people who work with APIs. And then let's focus on this try block here because this accept block did not. Oh, I see what it did here. Access to yeah, so it just printed out its own message. Okay, so that's what it did. All right, this is why I don't like the copy paste code because then I don't realize until after the fact what I'm doing. All right, so we're dumping it in here, and then we're just setting the model, the parameters that we want to do here. So we have body, we have the model ID, and then we're basically just reading the response out of the body of the response. Or we're reading the output of the model from the body of the response here, just like you would in the other JSON object. And so I'm demonstrating this here in a SageMaker notebook. I would never actually recommend a SageMaker notebook for a production scenario. Like SageMaker notebooks, Jupyter notebooks in general, great for discovery purposes, not for production purposes. But I would like to think, so this is just Boto 3. Boto 3 runs in a Lambda function. I don't know why this, I don't see any reason why this wouldn't run in a Lambda function. In fact, I would bet that it does. I would bet this runs in a Fargate container. I bet this would run in a SageMaker real-time API. Well, I know this would run in a real-time API. But the nice thing about this is you can see that, so let's compare apples and oranges again. Let's compare Bedrock here to the OpenAI API. The one downside to working with an OpenAI API is that it is not necessarily like you have to like if you want to have the primo level of security and whatever, you have to kind of figure that out. Like, so whereas if everything's on AWS, then in terms of security and stuff, I do think you want to be mindful of things like firewalls and whatever's coming in from the outside world, but it's largely being managed by IAM roles. And IAM roles, you know, they're not the easiest things to work with, but after you know what you're doing, then it's not too bad. That was the thing I wanted to show. I want to show, if you've never seen this, huge shout out to it. One of my coworkers showed me this one time a couple years ago. Adam, if you're watching. This is called the IAM Policy Simulator. And this is so nice. I love this tool. So what this does is basically, okay, so you can see here, I'm logged into my account right now. These are my, my like different roles or users inside of here, or I could go into groups or roles or whatever. Now you don't necessarily have to do this, but you can look to see, okay, let's say I have, what is this role called? This was called like the, I don't know. I don't remember. Well, let's just pick this one here. So I think we did this one from like a year back. So we have these policies associated to do it. So let's see with these policies associated to it. Now let's see if let's test this out. Let's say I want to do something in Bedrock, and let's say I want to list the models. So this is something that we did a little bit ago. So where's the list foundation models? List foundation models. I think this is, oh wait, there it is right there. So let's go ahead and run the simulation. If we run the simulation, you will see we are denied because this role over here, these policies over here, SageMaker Full Access, do not have these things inside of it. So this is a really, really nice debugging tool for IAM stuff. So makes life a lot easier. And if you wanted to, there was, oh man, I just clicked away. There was a button in here that you could create a new policy and then just kind of keep filling around with that. Like I have used this tool, I don't know, at least 10 times to debug really silly little things I've done. Great tool. Pros and cons of Bedrock. So there's a question in the chat about pros and cons of Bedrock. Biggest pro I would say is the integration with AWS. So I would actually imagine that at reInvent later this year, we're gonna see so much generative AI across all of their products. It's not even gonna be funny. And at the center of it is going to be Bedrock. The other great thing about Bedrock is that it has a bevy of models that you can choose from. So and like a variety of models. So if you want to try out Cohere, you can do that. If you want to try out Anthropic, you can do that. The only downside is that you do have to be mindful of licensing agreements and whatnot. All right, so there's some pros. Now, as far as cons go, so cons, this is going to sound like a really obvious one. Like it's not OpenAI. And I don't mean that to be like a derogatory or negative towards the models in Bedrock yet. It's just that as of today, people are really specifically interested. Like OpenAI is like the McDonald's of LLMs right now. And everybody is cool with eating McDonald's. Bedrock's not going to have that. Bedrock's not going to have the OpenAI models, which in my mind is fine. Like, because you like, sure, GPT-4 may be the most performant LLM today. I mean, we're still in the iPhone 1 era, folks. Like when you think about back to like when the iPhone originally came out in 2008, there was nothing on the market. And then like over time, then Samsung got in and Android phones got in, and now it's a booming market. And you could argue that those phones are better than iPhones. We are pretty much like we're already far further along in the LLM space. All right. Other con, I need to look at the pricing because I'm kind of convinced that Bedrock's kind of not nearly as cheap as OpenAI, and the only reason I'm convinced of that is because I did not do that much testing between yesterday and today, and I already incurred 2 cents from Claude using Claude. I don't know about this. I gotta verify this for sure. But I got maybe 4 or 5 cents from 2 pennies, which doesn't sound like that doesn't sound like a big deal, but on OpenAI, I could probably get like 10 paragraphs on 2 pennies. So I might be wrong about that. I might be hallucinating that. So there's that. And then I guess the other big one about Bedrock is I don't know how it integrates with stuff outside of the AWS ecosystem. Like, I don't know if you can expose this through like an API gateway and then have it go that way. I'm going to assume you can. It's probably not as easy as using like the OpenAI API. So there's not really many cons to Bedrock, to be honest. Like, I can't think of like one that's just glaring. Like I would, in terms of API functionality, I would put it on par with the OpenAI API. It's just that you have the added benefit of being on AWS, and that's a huge thing for companies that are already on AWS. Okay, so I hope that answered your question there. I don't really have much else to share tonight. I'm surprised that this stream went this long. Now, I guess let's go ahead and do some cleanup before we get out of here, because I don't want you to incur any bill. So I guess the only cleanup to do here is that we want to get rid of the SageMaker notebook that we spun up. So let's go ahead and delete that. And then if anybody has any questions, I'll answer any other questions. If not, then we'll go ahead and call it a night. All right, so let's go back down to our notebook. All right, so first things first, we need to stop it. So let's go to stop it. So we select the radio button over here next to it, and then we click stop, and then we wait a few minutes, and then we should be able to, like, this grayed out delete thing will come in here. So just don't want y'all incurring costs. There's no other reason to do this than this. So yeah, I'm just killing time while this stops. So anyway, this Friday, Super Mario Wonder and Spider-Man 2. It's a good weekend for video games. I'm really looking forward to both. What am I currently playing? Oh, I just finished Assassin's Creed Mirage. I really enjoyed that. It was a much shorter game, but I really enjoyed the return to form in terms of just getting rid of most of the RPG stuff. Like, I never got into the RPG stuff with the last 3 titles. Yeah, is this done stopping yet? Okay. Well, maybe I won't keep you all, but basically the whole thing here is when this is done stopping, be sure to delete this too, because it does incur cost much less cost if you didn't stop it, but it still does incur cost because it has a storage capacity, elastic file system thing on it. So when that's done, just be sure to delete it. Otherwise, let's just call it a night here. So I don't know when the next stream will be, to be completely transparent. I have definitely fallen off the rails in terms of trying to do a weekly thing with that, and the last like 5 streams, I think I said I'd be better, and I've not been. So I'm not gonna promise anything this time. There definitely won't be a stream on Friday, if you could tell. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. Hope you all have a good evening, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.